hold on to your pants?
Hold on to your pants.
I will.
It's Crisis at a Glance.
Good morning and good morning. The current leadership of Iran is directly descended from the radical students who stormed the American embassy in Tehran in 1979, who held dozens of Americans hostage for months, making Jimmy Carter a one-term president. The hostages were released and left Iranian airspace literally as Ronald Reagan was being sworn in. One of the memorable things about the hostage siege was how many times a settlement was reported but then fell apart. 3 successive foreign ministers, Ibrahim Yazdi, Abul Hassan Bani Sadr, and Zadek Gobzadeh, negotiated release of the hostages, only to be themselves replaced by Ayatollah Khomeini for agreeing to that. A reminder of how Iranians negotiate when Americans, whom they don't trust. And that's Crisis at a Glance.